Hello and welcome back to episode 3 of the Correct Opinion podcast. Today I had Marty Guilfoyle on, who spoke about his journey from fat to fit as a youngster, his life as an international DJ, and how he dealt with the controversy surrounding his TikTok house inclusion. Enjoy. So Marty, I have to say I am very excited to have you on.
Man, I'm so excited to be here. I followed you for so long and I get to see you in person and I get to tell everybody on your podcast he's bigger in person.
That's it. Once I ever post a topless video or something, the first comment that always comes through, what height are you, man? Because people want you say that you're 5 foot nothing, and then they see me in person.
Go, okay, he's a little bit short, so he's, compensating. And you're like, no, I think you're must be about 6'3", are you?
6'3". You're not too far off that yourself.
I think I'm just like half an inch smaller than you.
So you got out of the car, I was like, okay, this fella keeps going up.
As in height-wise, width-wise, I'm a good bit smaller than this guy.
Well, you're wearing the oversized t-shirt. You're very humble here. Yeah. So, you've had a pretty wild summer, haven't you?
I have, yeah. You can tell my voice is gone. Although, like I said earlier on, some of my listeners on Spin last night said they prefer my voice like this, and now I'm a little bit worried to get my voice back. It's been a good summer, though, between festivals and gigging, and obviously February with the restrictions being lifted and stuff. Like, it's just been a year that I think everyone was just ready to just like make a shit ton of memories and just forget about the last couple of years. So fortunately enough for me, my job is to be amongst all that. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Now, something that a lot of people don't know about me is that back in transition year, I used to have dreams of becoming an international superstar DJ.
Stop.
Do you know that platform software called Mix 2.0? I think it was Mix spelled with 2 X's.
Okay, yeah, you had that.
I downloaded that and used to sit in my front room. And what I do was I get one song from, let's say, Nicky Romero, Toulouse.
Yeah,
and then
banger,
I'd get the drop from a completely other song and just squash it onto Nicky Romero. And I showed my brother before and he goes, that's actually really good. And then I showed one of my mates thinking that, this could be something I'd getting into. And the hysterics that they laughed with, just the complete obscurity of the drop in that. So what I'm curious about is, let's say someone who might have aspirations of becoming a DJ or something. How is that something that you get into? Where do you start with all of that?
Every DJ that I've spoken to has a different story. So, but it all boils down to just being an annoying prick, basically.
Really?
Yeah, like you just bug people. And eventually someone just goes, I need to keep this guy off me. I'll give him a shot. My story started when I was on a Leaving Cert holiday and I wanted to go to Trinity and do law. My mum's a barrister, so that was the plan. And as you can tell, the plan changed somewhere along the way.
Just subtly.
On the side, I represent people in court. And when I was on that Leaving Cert holiday, I was absolutely hammered one night. It was like 4 a.m. I was in a nightclub called 9 to 8, and there was a DJ playing called DJ Coco Loco. He was having so much fun. And I was standing at the back of the club, and he was playing some mad remix of Lady Gaga's Poker Face. And I was like, this is so cool. This guy is having the time of his life. So drunk old 18-year-old me went over to him and I was like, hey, I'd love to do that. And he laughed at me. He was like, everyone comes up to me every night and tells me they would like to do this. And I was like, okay. He goes, where are you from? And I was like, I'm from Ireland. And he goes, I'd love an Irish barman. So he was manager of the club and stuff. And then they had another spot as well that he ended up working in. And he goes, would you be interested in getting a job? And I was like, yeah. So I took a job as a barman, rang my parents, told them I wasn't coming home. And I learned how to DJ before the club opened. So that's how I got into it. Now, I was terrible. I was so bad. It was only when I got home and could put a bit of money into equipment and learn myself that things like started clicking regarding the nitty-gritty things like beat matching and songs being in the same key and stuff. But like, that's how it started for me. I saw a DJ that I was, for a whole 10 minutes looked up to. Yeah. And it was like, I want to do that, And again, I was very fortunate. He was very welcoming. A lot of jokes go around now about DJ Coco Loco now. I don't know. I think I can say this. The joke is that I found out like years later that he's actually gay. And then one of the girls that I worked with in the bar said he only hired you because he fancied you. And I'm like, what? And I was like, he never made a move. Like, not. By the way, I'm straight. By the way, so if he hadn't made a move, no, it wouldn't have worked. Well, how bad do you want something, John? I don't know. Like,
well, that's it. Listen, if it gets me to be an international DJ with millions of streams on Spotify,
DJ Coco Loco, let's go.
It.
Yeah.
So when you came home, did you know that that's exactly what you wanted to do? And was your path kind of laid out, so to speak, from there, that every action that you took from that point was with a view to becoming a DJ in a couple of years' time?
Absolutely. Everything. So what happened is then we got our results. I didn't get my number one choice, but I ended up getting it after I got history recorrected and I went up 10 points. But I was told by Trinity that, yeah, you've got the points, but you have to wait a year because the course is full. And I was like, I'm not waiting a year. So DIT had a course that I had my CAO, business, French, and Spanish, but they also offered me a basketball scholarship. So I was thinking, oh, I'll just go this. I know I don't want to do either of these courses, but at the time I got a job with a community radio station called Liffey Sound. I have them to thank for so much. Same thing again. I just rang them one day and I was like, hey, my name is Martin and I'd love to be on the radio. And the guy who answered the phone, Fran, funny enough, said, you can't just ring a radio station and expect to be put on the radio, but I like your style. Can you come down now? And I was like, yeah. So he brought me down and put me on air. Now, this is a community radio station based in Lucan. Probably didn't have a big listenership, but that's where it started. So I had that on the side while I was in college. And then I was playing basketball and then doing like local nightclubs as well. So it was a mad 4 years. Sprinkle that with a part-time job in Abercrombie and delivering Chinese. And I got through college doing all of that. And then I could really focus on the DJing and the music and stuff and go from there. So,
well, that's a big lesson as well. You said to become a DJ, you'd have to be an annoying little prick.
Yeah.
So then what you did was not only did you go up to Coca Loco and go, I want to be a DJ, can you mentor me? You then came home and rang the local radio station and said, will you bring me on?
Yeah, and they were so nice. Fran Walsh, his nickname was the Roadrunner in Lucan. So nice. He just brought me down and he just loved the enthusiasm, the kind of way. And a lot of people do. I think you can be, excuse me, there's my voice again. I think you can be enthusiastic without being annoying. You know what I mean? And that's what he liked about it. It was kind of an older demographic for that radio station. A lot of people would have been older than me at the time in that radio station. And he just liked someone kind of young, ready to kind of go and do it. And he took me under his wing and I have him to thank for so much. I really do.
That's an interesting point because like a lot of people would think, okay, the way that I get a position like that is I go in and offer to work for free. I do an internship, all the traditional way that you would think to become, let's say, a radio DJ. But the fact that you just had the cojones to just ring someone up and is what. But I think that's a great lesson for anyone who's looking to get into any sort of job or career or something that they like. Is just take a plunge, take a risk. You might come out with egg on your face, but the upside of that is potentially very, very high.
Nailed it. And what's the worst? Somebody says no, or they leave you unseen. Like
that's it.
That's literally the worst. They're not going to come around and like slap you or whatever. Like the worst is you get left unseen. But the thing is, even if you get left unseen, they know who you are. And that's half the battle, is the people that you want to work for knowing who you are. And then it's up to you to do something with that. So yeah, I got fortunate in a way, but then at the same time, to get into somewhere like Spin, that's where it got a little bit more difficult. After like 1 or 2 years in the local radio station in Lucan, I was like, okay, I'm in the zone here. I'm feeling it. I'm good. I'm going to send a demo to like a really big radio station and see what happens. So I sent it to Spin and a guy called James Davids got the demo and word for word basically told me it was shit, but thought I had potential. And so he brought me in for a week internship, which I haven't left since. So I'm on a 12-year internship now.
I think that ties in really well to something that a lot of people need to understand as well. Like, especially, I can relate to this from my social media and stuff. The first time that you ever do something is always going to be the worst time, but it's also the most important thing that you ever do. Because while something might be shit, it only gets better from there, provided you look at the shit experience and go, I need to improve on this, or this is where this could be better. Like if I look back on my first ever videos, I go, I can't even listen. I have to listen to it on mute. Over projection, over use of hands in videos. But like ultimately, had I not taken the plunge to do that first video, I wouldn't necessarily be where I am today. So
exactly. And we were just talking about that before we started recording, about how I asked you, I was like, do you watch your old videos? And you're like, reluctantly.
Yeah. Not unless I have to.
But at the same time, you're not going to delete them either, because you're like, this is where this guy started, and look where he is now. And you can even see it in what you've done, Like, again, before we started recording, I was telling Sean, I don't know how long I've followed you. I remember you popped up on my feed for the first time well over a year or two ago, as far as I remember. And I remember sharing it because I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Like he's absolutely just tearing into these dopes online who I've personally been affected by, and that's why I resonated with your stuff so much. And I think I'm about 6 or 7 years older than you. And what I loved about it is that there's this guy so much younger than me with so much more knowledge than me who is literally willing to like tell people that some of the shit that you're seeing online is so fake. I went through a phase, man, of seeing so much stuff online. I bought raspberry ketones at one point to lose body fat. Like, I have bought every single supplement under the sun. And now I'm watching your videos and I'm like, thank God there is somebody telling young people not to buy half the shit, because it is a waste of money.
From my position, because it's kind of, I've always been learning from people who have been no bullshit, essentially. That's where I get my information from, podcasts, from people who I look up to and learn from, and I just relay that on to people. For me, it's very hard to kind of relate to individuals who might look at like a ketone drink or something and think, that's what I need to get. So I suppose the question that I have is, how naive, I suppose, were you at that time? Were you genuinely did you think that this is just a handy way for me to get to a certain body fat level or whatever? Or did you genuinely believe that this is exactly how this works? Like, with fat loss and muscle building?
Whatever I saw, whatever I read in the label, I believed straight up. So when I first started training, so I've been weight training now maybe 10 years. So when people ask me this, how long does it take to get whatever? And you tell them I've been weight training for 10 years. They don't like hearing that. They want to hear 6 months, you know, that kind of way. So when you tell them something like 10 years, they kind of go, oh, okay. When I look back to when I started out at like 18, 19 in a gym, like there was a supplement store in the gym I was training in Dublin, and oh my God, like I was working part-time, wanting to be a radio presenter, not making a lot of money out of doing the deliveries and then working in a cafe as well. And half my monthly money was going on whey protein. I tried every different type of creatine under the sun, from flavor to tablets to monohydrate powder. I was like, literally, and I never stuck to one thing either, because every time I went into the supplement store, there was something else, you know? And I was like, oh, let's get this, whether it was a fat burner or not. I wasn't aware of the idea of how to burn fat. So I had this idea of like, you know, I'm seeing these people in the gym who are not only jacked, but they're lean. And I'm like, that's what I want to get. So in my head, I'm thinking I'll drink a shit ton of protein powder and I'll take a shit ton of fat burners and I'll just end up like that. So I look back at it all and I'm like, if I could get 10% of that money back right now, oh my God, like I'd be living in an absolute mansion.
What do you think was the worst thing that you've ever done in your pursuit of losing fat or building muscle? What was the worst thing that you ever believed?
Oh my God. So we were talking about this, of the carbohydrate thing. I went through a phase in my early 20s of like just choosing not to eat carbohydrates, because I was convinced that is how I was going to get abs, was not eating carbs. I look back to photos of me when I lived in France for a year when I was 20. And I look back at photos there. I was 78 kilos then. So I'm about 94 now, 94, 95. And I'm like, why didn't someone tell me? You know, the kind of way how skinny I was. In my head, I was like getting leaner. No, I was getting like stupidly thin. So I was like, again, just not eating carbs. You know, I was coming home and doing stupid things, like I was boiling a full bag of peas as my carbohydrate base, and I was just putting like cod on it. Like, I'm serious, man. And the thing is, well, I was like, because I was a student and I wasn't exactly like making a shit ton of cash, I was like buying this microwavable cod. So the two girls I live with would hear the microwave door open, Ruth and Mags. They laugh about this to this day. I'm putting cod in the microwave and I'm literally stinking up the entire apartment, lobbing it on top of a bowl of peas. And that's, but I'm not even this. The thing is I look back and I can laugh now. I'm not joking. And they were my meals 3 times a day. I'm like, yeah, I got my proteins, I got my veg. I'm not eating rice, I'm not eating bread, you know, and that's fine. And I look back and I'm like, it did nothing for me other than make me miserable.
But even if it got you the most shredded physique in the world, it's like, at what cost? You had to eat fucking cod and boiled peas.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Literally, yeah. So it wasn't even a fun way to do it. But I didn't even do it. That's the thing. So, yeah.
So I think if you weren't like a DJ, radio, disc jockey, you would probably have made a career as a fitness influencer, just judging by some of the physique pics that I've seen online.
I've cut back on them as well, you might have noticed.
Why is that?
Because, I went through a phase of, so I look back, so when I remember going back to, this might be 2017, 2018, and I had a string of gigs in Mallorca, and I was like, let's get shredded for this. So I remember getting tested on the calipers and I was 7% body fat on the calipers. I was about 85 kilos, 86 kilos. I was miserable. I was so tired. I was so exhausted, but I was getting like 6,000 likes on an Instagram picture. And I was like, okay, like this is cool, but I'm fucking exhausted, you know, that kind of way. And at one point, literally overnight, I was like, what am I doing? Like buying extra small t-shirts to show off what I've worked on, like getting any opportunity to get a beach pic and all, like, you know, it's just not, because I've seen people online do this and it made me do it. And now I click not interested in half that stuff because I'm like, that's like a small snippet of what's really going on in their life. And I'm just like, I don't want to be that person that someone follows and looks at and goes, oh, like I can never get like this or whatever, and make them feel bad about themselves, you know, the kind of way. So I pulled right back on it. And like, I used to get like laughed at in the office and all. Like, I remember my old boss, I went in for a meeting once and he was like, oh, you're wearing a t-shirt. I was like, oh, cheers. Thanks. And again, that was a running joke with so many people. Oh my God, I can't believe you own a t-shirt. And I was like, well, I hear this joke one more time. You probably get it as well.
It's like the tall guy. Well, how's the weather up there?
How's the weather? It's like, okay, I get it. Yeah. So yeah, I did go through a phase of where I was like, I've worked hard for this, I'm going to show it off. But now I've gotten to a point where I'm so happy with my training. I'm so happy with what I'm eating that I'm like, I'm doing it for my health and I'm doing it for me, you know?
Yeah, and just kind of from looking at your Instagram photos, whenever you were posting any of those shredded pictures, you had the biggest smile on your face as well.
And I'm so sad.
That's what I find so interesting about it.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is that when you're looking at absolutely, and look, I'm in probably 10 to 15% body fat at the moment, which I think is a reasonable sort of place for me to sit at. But when you get to that single digit level, those people are not feeling good. Like they might look good on the exterior, but everything's worse. Their mood, their libido.
Libido is way down. And I've always had issues anyway with my hormones. So I wasn't helping. You know, when you work nights, your hormones take an absolute hammering. And I didn't realize this until I got my bloods done. And now I get them done so regularly because like they're so important, especially for people who train. And if you work nights too, it's like hormones. Like I'm like, oh my God, it explains so much. But the one thing as well that I had in my mind, and I remember commenting on one of your videos about this because it was the most relatable video that you've ever posted that I watched to me as a person. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And it was what did you call it? It was a puffy nipple syndrome or something. It was like,
yeah, I remember because people would accuse me of gyno when I just I've had massive nipples. For as long as I can remember.
And I remember going to my doctor and asking him, do I have gyno? And he said, no, it's body fat. And I was like, you sure it's not breast tissue? And he was like, it's not. I promise you it is not. My coaches told me it's not as well. But the reason being is that when I was in primary school, and I've said this so many times, I was in a mixed school. I was the first person in the class with a pair of tits. So I was the first person with 2 massive boobs and I was male. And they never left me. Do you know that kind of way?
They just turned into muscle.
Well, like, yeah, but I still have that little bit of like, you know, kind of like fat at the end of them. It never went. And there was something about that. I was always so self-conscious about that. I bought these stupid vests from China that were like chest flatteners because I was so self-conscious about them. I remember bringing them in. I was training in them and everything because I felt like I looked better in them, even though they were so uncomfortable to wear. And I think that's why I wanted to get to like a really low body fat. I was like, I've been slagged so much about this that I'm like, okay, I'm going to show people now that I'm actually able to like get really, really low. And while the numbers were going down and down and down, there was an element of like success to it. But like you said, like after each percent going down, my mood, everything. And then I got more and more stricter with my diet. I found myself going out for food with friends and stuff. And I was like looking at the menu and I wasn't going to buy what I wanted to eat. I was going to buy what suited my body fat percentage, which ended up being the worst thing on the menu, you know?
The thing that a lot of people need to weigh up in their mind as well, and I want to come back to that gyno point as well, because I think it's hugely, hugely relevant. As someone who's worked with hundreds of men over the last year or so, the majority of them have some form of gyno, and people don't really realize how common it is. Mm-hmm. But just going back to what you're saying there, that you were getting leaner to get physically into better shape. And I do think that if you go from, let's say, one end of the spectrum, you're completely out of shape, out of breath walking upstairs, whatever, or you're just not happy with how you look, there's definitely huge marginal utility to be gained out of getting to maybe a middle ground area, a nice lean physique, bit of muscle. But then once you try to push beyond that and think that leaner is better, the amount that you have to sacrifice is actually detracting from the quality of your life, which if you go back to where you first started from, you started this to improve the quality of your life, not to get to a point where you're walking into a supermarket and you can't buy chicken fillets, that you have to buy fish fillets because it's half the fucking calories.
Yes.
That you're not boiling microwave peas and slapping some cod on top of it, you know?
And ruining the experience for your apartment housemates at the same time, stinking up the place. Yeah. No, you're so right. And I got there to the point where I'd be actually a huge advocate for intermittent fasting. I'm a big fan of it, but not to the point where I'm super strict and it has to be 16-8, you know, the kind of way. But then I got to a point when I was getting really, really lean. I was doing 24 and like, why? Like, what? That's just I was tormenting myself.
24 hours?
No, 24. So I was fasting for 20 hours and eating for 4. Yeah. But now the one thing I will say is that when you work evenings and nights, it's actually easier to do, because if you're working 9 to 5, I find intermittent fasting to be pretty tough, because you're going to wake up really, really early and you're going to wait until you have your first meal about 12 or 1 o'clock. And that to me is difficult. But when you work evenings and nights, you can have your last meal at say 10 o'clock and you're going to bed at say 2 or 3 and you're getting your 8 hours sleep. You only have a couple of more hours to go then, if you know what I mean, before you can have your first meal. So I found it easier to do because I worked evenings and nights. But the more I pushed it, because the leaner I was getting, I ended up a couple of weeks doing a 20-hour fast every single day with a 4-hour eating window. And during the 4 hours, like, I'm stuffed. Like, I'm so full, you know, that kind of way. So,
well, that's it. But with kind of nights, and I think it's pretty well documented that it's not ideal for your health to be, you know, having massive meals in the middle of the night, to have, I suppose, your lifestyle orientated around kind of working nights. You have no choice with that. So I'd be kind of interested in what do you do, and intermittent fasting will be one of those things. What do you do to balance the life of a DJ who's out in a nightclub most nights of the week with your radio show, with the fact that you need to get to the gym and obviously get stronger to build muscle? How do you manage all that?
But I think if you start to treat the gym as something that enhances your life, you know, and as something that will benefit your health, it's so much easier to fit in. Like when I was at the ridiculously low body fat, I would get the guilt for not training, especially if I was gigging abroad. You know, I'd have to be staying in a hotel with a gym. If I wasn't, then I've never been like an anxious person, but I'd be close enough to being anxious, because I'd be like, oh my God, what's going to happen here if I don't get my 45 minutes to an hour in, you know? And to me, an hour of walking wasn't enough. I needed the weights, you know? And that's not true. Like, you don't, you know, especially when you're away. So right now it's a case of where I would train 4 or 5 times a week, weightlifting. I get my 10 to 15,000 steps in every single day. But the great thing about my gigs is that my gigs are, I'm dancing, you know, I'm having fun. That's my cardio, you know. I always do this thing to show people, like, I'm not that I'm encouraging going out and getting absolutely hammered every night, but I'm saying that if you were to choose to go on a night out and not drink alcohol, if you're in the middle of, you know, trying to, you know, get a better like health and get a better like healthy lifestyle, I always put up like my watch. So I set it to cardio mode when I'm DJing, and I always put up how many calories I burn after each set, just for a bit of fun. And you're looking at 700-800, like, and I'm thinking that to me that's an hour and a half, 2 hours in the stepper. And I'm like, I know which one I'd rather be doing.
You DJing, playing to a packed out crowd, or on a Stairmaster inside in a cold gym.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think there's a lot of people in that luxurious position though.
No,
so
I know what you mean. That's very true. Yeah. But you could go out to a nightclub and you could dance. But
you know what? I've actually used it as advice for some of my clients before. I've said, look, if you're going on a night out, you're sculling all these pints.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do to change that. Ideally, you know, for the sake of 12 weeks that you're with me, you might, you know, not do that. But I'm like, if you are going to the nightclub, I best see you on the fucking dance floor.
Yeah, you're moving.
Exactly. If you look at me after, like, I got to a stage there where I actually had to taper it back, because I was going in, there's a nightclub in Limerick called Icon. And I was going in.
Well, I lived in Limerick.
Did you?
Yeah, because Spin Set West is based down there. So when I worked on the morning show, I was 2.5 years living in Raheen. So Icon, I was very familiar with it, because I gigged in other places around Limerick, but never in Icon, because that would be kind of more cheesier, more commercial. But I went so many times, and yeah, I danced a lot.
You were down in Limerick recently, or the other day, wasn't it? Dolan's?
I was in Dolan's on Monday night, and I'm going back on the 28th to play in UL. So I love Limerick.
What's that? Just the owner of the nightclub says, Marty, come down, do a couple of hours for me there. How does that work?
I have a manager when it comes to music. His name is Greg. He emailed me 5 years ago, telling me that he manages talent. He loved what I was doing and asked me would I take a chance with him, basically. And I was like,
fuck it.
This is what I did. You know, this is how I got my gig. So I was like, let's go. And we've been here since. You know what I mean? Like,
that's so interesting how everything goes full circle.
It does, because like that's why now. Like, and the same with the guy who does my videos for me for my gigs. He did the same thing. He reached out to me, and I'm like, I have to give these people a shot. You know, that kind of way. Because if I didn't get my shot doing exactly what they're doing now, I don't know where I'd be now. So when I got the mail from Greg asking could he manage me, I was like, let's go. His email was so well written. It was like, I'm eager, ambitious. This is what I want to do. And I was like, let's go, you know? So yeah, people get in touch with him. And then we would tell them, you know, how long I do and what I do. Because I know people see the videos and stuff online and you're like, oh my God, wow. Like this is what he's doing. But I would do that for my whole set. So it's not just a case of like I do that once for a night, that one little routine, and the rest is plain. Yeah. So I think that's probably why a lot of the calories get burnt as well, because like I'm spending more time moving around and doing that than I am actually, I don't know, what most DJs I see doing, just standing there with their hands in the air or trying to pull women. I don't know. Like
something I think a lot of people think about is when you're DJing, is it just you're there for the visual appeal of having someone behind the decks, or is there something that you actually have to do in real time while you're DJing?
So yes and no. You don't actually have to. And there are DJs that would get away with not doing anything. They could put together an amazing hour mix and pretend to be twisting all the knobs on the mixer. I've never done that. And I always said to myself, I would never do that either, you know, because especially with TikTok, and that's what made my social media from a TikTok end blow up, was showing people, you know, giving people songs they knew in a way that they hadn't heard them before. And I was like, I can't have people watch this online and then turn up and I'm not doing that. Yeah. That makes no sense. You know what I mean? It's like someone watching your videos and you're telling people, you know, this is silly, this is stupid, don't be doing this. And then the client comes in and you're like, okay, do this, do that. You know what I mean? But you said online that and you're like, yeah, no, don't mind that. This is what I want you to do. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's everything I do. It's all live. So like I'll have 3 players and the 3 different parts of each song. I'd have an instrumental deck. I'd have an a cappella deck. And then I've got a deck which has all the full versions. And I just have fun, you know? So
you're just adding your own little spice, so to speak, is it, when you're on the decks?
It's just, again, like I like to say, it's like giving people a song that they know in a way they haven't heard it before. That's what the goal is when people come to see me play, you know? And obviously people will have their opinions on some of the stuff that I do. It's grand. I don't mind. Sometimes it does sound pretty shit, to be honest, and then they can send me a message later and tell me that was shit, and I just message them back saying, you're right, I need to work on that.
Well, I for one was listening to your Spotify coming up, and I was like, the first 2 songs that I heard, that whatever came on was on shuffle. I was like, okay, this is all right. And then whatever happened, whatever way it shuffled, I was like, fuck, if I get a speeding ticket here, Marty's playing with the bangers that are playing here.
So funny enough with Spotify, people don't realize I actually have 4 Spotify profiles. So again, it's been a long road, and I'm still nowhere near where I want to be on Spotify. But in the last year, I've kind of hit a milestone that's what we're focusing on for the next year, and with a record deal that I got. And I used to work with 2 guys. We were KBM. So if you want to listen to some really old stuff, look up KBM. And there's a song called Free. And like, I cannot recommend this enough to you who is listening right now to listen to this song Free and like just break your bollocks laughing, because at the time when we'd finished it, I was like, this is a hit. This is going to get us on the global scale. Like, I'm ready for this one. It's so bad.
like objectively or subjectively?
No. It's so bad. It's so cheesy. It's just, we made a music video for it. Like, this is, oh my God, this must be 8 years ago. But I was convinced this was the one, Sean. And then it really wasn't. It was so bad. Like, so some of the older stuff with KBM. Then the guy who I actually do music with right now, his name is Connor McAvoy. He goes by the name of Conmac. We had a duo called Conmac and Marty. We have 2 profiles there. We signed a small deal with Sony Ireland, and we put out some bangers there too. And then I kind of got advice. It was like, look, maybe it's time now. You've built up your social media to kind of go solo. So we did Marty Guilfoyle. That went pretty good. And then we've got Marty now, which is something that it was like from a film. Like we were all on Zoom with the label. And they were like, yeah, we just don't think Guilfoyle really works in the international market, which is where we want to push you. And I was like, oh my God, here's another name change. And I was like, well, why don't we just put an extra Y at the end of Marty and call it Marty? And they all just paused. I thought they'd laugh and then come up with a better idea, but they all just paused and went, oh my God, that's incredible. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, no, you can't be joking right now.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have known that because I was listening, I think, to the Marty Guilfoyle profile.
Yeah, so
but there's another one.
A new one now is called it's just Marty with 2 Y's.
And are you releasing, I know you have some original music, but is most of what you do remixes of songs that exist already? Or are you
Before, yes, but now my latest track with a great friend of mine, her name is Jen Payne, that is a remake as well of a track, the 49ers Touch Me. We did a remake of that. My next one is coming out with a guy from Limerick. His name is Just G. It's called Darkness.
Oh, yes.
Yes, purely original. And Hometown as well. That was purely original. So we're going to strike a balance. We're going to go down the more original route and see what happens there. Because a lot of the stuff I did before, between 1-2 Step and Me and You, they were covers, obviously. But they're so much fun to make because you can take songs that you listened to growing up and then put your own twist on them for your sets, you know?
During COVID, I remember you were nearly every day posting reels of you were in your kitchen with the decks and you were posting absolute bangers just every single day. So you've obviously leveraged social media. Was it always with the intention of furthering your DJing career, or was it just you were messing about on Instagram or TikTok and then one thing led to another and you happened to get traction for DJing?
Yeah, so that's actually a great question. I don't know why. I think I did it I always wanted to be a DJ, and I feel like the kind of DJ I wanted to be, I needed people to know who I was. Social media gives you that, like, you know, chance to kind of show people who you are. I was big into Vine. I had a massive following on Vine. So unfortunately, Vine disappeared and I felt like my career disappeared with it. I was like, no. I was like, about all these people here in one place, where are we going to get these back? And then obviously TikTok came, which is basically a better Vine. And at the same time TikTok came, I posted one video and it ended up getting 30 million views and 5 million likes. And I was thinking, holy shit, this app is for me. I was thinking, like, this is how I can get out there and show people. Because with Instagram, you can do that. At the same time, I find with TikTok, it's harder to be faker on TikTok. Like on Instagram, you can be someone you're not. On TikTok, I find it really hard. Again, if you're posting just videos on both platforms, then fair enough. But, you know, between Photoshops and stuff, like, you could obviously just be whoever you want to be on Instagram. But with TikTok, I was like, I can actually DJ here on a platform and show people what I do, and they can watch it on their phone, and then they can decide if they want to come see me. Pandemic hit, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh God. But I was like, I still have this platform, so I'm just going to keep on DJing on this app until COVID goes away, which at the time I thought would be a month. I was like, maybe 2 months, 3 months, just kept on going. And then, yes, funny enough, that's how I ended up getting signed to Sony in the UK under Relentless, because the videos, I just kept getting traction, just like yourself, you know. And you're same thing you said before we were recording. It was like, what's going on here? Who shared my stuff? Why does this keep going up? What's going on here? But no, it was just another platform for me to show people what I do, and yeah, and I guess here I am. Like,
I distinctly remember there was a trend going around TikTok, and it was your song or your remix or something that was underneath it. How did that going mega viral, that trend, did that boost your career in any way, shape, or form?
It did. It really, really did, to the point where we considered trying to get rights to actually remake the track as an official release. Didn't happen. We weren't able to do it, but yeah, no, I think it ended up getting like 300,000 video uses or something, which was mad. Creators that were on my For You page when I first set up the app were using the sound. I was like, this is bonkers. Like, you know, this is so cool. And then even to the point now where I'm still doing my sets and someone's like, dude, a whole lot of Choppa's remix. And it's like, okay, no problem. So it was a transition trend that people were doing with it because of a big, massive build up. And then when the drop hit, you know, these people that do these transition videos, I am like, how do you make these?
It was with the heads moving sideways.
Heads moving and everything. I'm like, and I remember chatting to one guy, because one guy who used it had about 10 million followers. And I was like, what? How do you do this? And he told me it takes 5 hours to make one video. And I'm just thinking, that's dedication right there. Yeah, like that's mental.
That's 300,000 people who took 5 hours out of the day.
Yeah. Well, not all of them were
video.
that good. Like, yeah. It's like you're doing it here. You can't really see. You can't see it. Sean doing this thing with his hands right now. He's like, it was like the head thing. I was like, some people actually did look like that. They were just doing this. And then obviously some people nailed it too. Like, so yeah, I was a bit mad.
So obviously, and you know all too well, TikTok isn't always the nicest place in the world. So I don't know where I heard of this first. I remember the TikTok house was set up, and all of a sudden people were talking about Marty Guilfoyle, and it wasn't actually on mainstream social media. I think it was primarily on Twitter, because I remember having to go look, why are people talking about Marty here? So do you mind talking about, I suppose, what your unfortunate experience with TikTok in the house was?
So the TikTok house thing, now I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt who literally said the most horrible things about me, because I find in Ireland, we're fed so much television and stuff from the UK and America that when the idea of the TikTok house popped up, which was literally what it says on the tin, it was 10 people with a large TikTok following combining it for one big one. And we all did different things and we'd all share each other's stuff. So the idea was that we were all dipping into new audiences, because people followed me for music and DJing. People followed Andrea and Lewis because they were this public couple. They love seeing all the coupley shit. I personally hate it, as in, not that I hate Andrea and Lewis. I just hate couples being overly coupley online. I'm like, we get it, you're in love, you know? And we just, like, I just want to clear up out there, they're great, I love them. But like, sometimes I'm like, okay, guys, stop kissing, please. I'm like, we're watching this on my phone. So when the idea of a TikTok house came out and we were all moving in together, we were all of different ages. So the youngest person in there was 18 and I was the oldest person going on 30. So like, if you think about it, like, people were thinking that this was going to be some sort of like a Big Brother or like a Love Island. So people automatically were assuming that I could potentially end up sleeping with the 18-year-old. And one person put up a tweet saying, an 18-year-old living with a 28-year-old is disgusting. I did it. He was a creep, this, that, and the other. So Marty Guilfoyle living in a house full of teenage girls is vile. So people, rather than doing their research, read that tweet, saw that I had moved into a house and there was 3 teenagers technically in the house, and assumed that that's what the house was about. So they automatically thought that I was some sort of predator in this house preying on girls 10 years younger than me, which I was like, like, at first I couldn't understand how this idea had come from, because I was thinking about it. I was like, especially with the way rent is now, you know, people are struggling to find rooms and stuff in college. You could go view a room and the other housemates might not be there and you'll take the room. And then all of a sudden, if you find out that there's someone 10 years older than you in the house, are you supposed to move out? I don't understand where the logic was coming from, but I think it all boils down to they thought there was going to be cameras on us all the time, and we were in there to kind of get with each other. Does that make sense?
I don't know if that's what people really thought.
Okay.
And my take on this is that a TikTok house is a TikTok house. I think most people can draw their own conclusions as to what goes on in a TikTok house. Probably a lot of people with ring lights set up, dancing in front of a camera, collaborating, but maybe people don't understand this. I firmly believe that people understand intention, but instead of knowing that, you know, Marty Guilfoyle is not a predator, is not this, that, or the other, what he's being made out by one person online to be, they just jump towards, I don't know if it's a negativity bias. They want to, because the story of you, let's say, potentially being that person is more of a I suppose, juicy story than you just being in there making TikToks as you were to promote your new single that you had at the time.
That's it. Me having a new single and hoping that they would use it in their videos. You're right. Actually, that makes sense. It definitely draws more of an audience in. It's like, yeah, that does make sense. But it was the type of person that was messaging me and just assuming the absolute worst. And like, anyone who was in that, you know, house with me, and especially the older people as well, I didn't understand why some of them weren't getting it. I was like, hang on a minute, what about you guys? Why aren't you guys getting any of this?
What was the age of the next oldest person?
Oh, the same age.
And they were just somehow
chilled out. Yeah. Like, oh, okay, you can take all this, man. You know? Yeah. So, and then it was 2 years again lower, and then maybe another 2 years. Majority that, like, it was the 3, I think Layla at the time. So it was Nia, Lauren and Shauna, they were definitely 18 as far as I know. Layla could have been 20, so it would have been just the three, and everyone else would have been older. So it was just the idea. I don't know. I think you could be right on that one. It's just like the idea of like a more dramatic story for sure. I lasted 2 days in it and I left because it just wasn't worth it in my head. I was like,
was that what drove you out, or did another?
It kind of did, because I didn't want. This isn't. I was like, I'm happy with how my career is going. This is not how I want to go out. So me and my manager, we made a decision and was like, look, we'll get out of here now, and then it'll eventually die down. But the bit that bothered me, like I said, was the kind of person getting involved who would never stop you on the street and say it to you. They were so happy to do it online. And I was told this great piece of advice. It was like, if someone's saying something that you think that they're not willing to sit down and write it on a letter and put a stamp on it and go to the post box and send it to your address, then don't take note of it, because 15 years ago, that's what they would have had to do. Now it's just so easy to try get at somebody. One guy, and I ignored everybody, didn't reply to anybody, because I never do reply to any negativity at all, because like, to me, I'm just like, who are you? Like, but one guy I had to reply to, and that was because he tweeted, Marty Guilfoyle was definitely the guy finishing college going out with a fourth year in secondary school. Like, what? Like, makes no sense. But in his bio, he had hashtag be kind. Even if I don't know you, you can DM me and talk about this with me. So I quote retweeted his tweet with a screenshot of his bio. And I said, hey man, this tweet has affected me. Can I DM you to talk about it? And he panicked, because he was like, oh crap, like people are going to see this. He was straight into my DMs begging me, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I didn't think you'd see that. Just a bit of fun. And at that point I realized it's always just a bit of fun, isn't it?
You'd have more respect for him if he said, actually, stand by what I said.
It's just a bit of fun. I was like, what this guy saw was an opportunity to hop on a bandwagon and get a couple of likes. And he came up with the most ridiculous statement ever just for people to like and retweet. And that's what he came up with. And his excuse was, I didn't think you would see it. I forgot you're a real person or something. I can't remember what it was. So I told him, look, I ended up deleting my version of it, and I messaged him back, and I was like, your tweet didn't bother me, but your tweet could have bothered someone. It could have bothered someone enough that they did something stupid. So that's the only thing I'd ever say about someone who's going to put up something like that. It's like, you just don't know what someone could do after reading that, the kind of way. And I see how you deal with it, and it's great. It makes me laugh, but some people wouldn't be able to deal with that, And if someone's just trying to put out stuff because they're trying to do something, and you got someone saying stuff that could really affect them, it's like, you just don't know.
No, number one, it's nearly hilarious how it always plays out the way you expect it to. So when you see someone posting negativity online, you assume it's a projection of something that they're not particularly happy about, or potentially they're insecure about. The amount of times, that exact same scenario where I've gotten horrendous comments from people, you go to their bio, it gives a completely different representation of what that person is about. Second to that as well, I'm not sure what other point you were making. Oh yes, when I get hate comments occasionally, and look, if someone leaves a shitty comment about me, your Instagram handle's getting put on my story. I'm under no obligation to block you out. So that's the price you pay.
You're not, though. That's the thing. And I don't know why people do worry about that, because you're right. You should out them. Then, let everyone go message them if they want.
And one time, one fella called me some variation of the word pussy. And I screenshotted the chat DM, his profile in it, posted a story with a funny caption beside it. And the people coming to me saying, you don't know what he's going through. You should take that down. You don't know what's going on in this person's life. I said, he doesn't know what's going on in my life.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
So why am I the villain here when this person has gone out of their way to call me some horrendous shit?
It's because you have the audience. And I don't think that to me doesn't justify it. But because you have the audience and more people can see it, therefore you're in the wrong. But given the way social media is, we all know these days, you don't need an audience for your stuff to be seen or heard. You could have 10 followers on TikTok and get 100,000 views tomorrow. Like, you just don't know.
Yeah.
So if you have 10 followers and you post a video about Marty Guilfoyle being a predator, it could get 100,000 views. So to use the excuse that, well, Marty has an audience, he shouldn't be using that against somebody. To me, I've never done what you did before. I'd be probably too afraid to be honest. I should try. But if if I saw you do that, I would never in a million years be like, you're the bad guy for that one. If anything, again, just because you come across as the kind of guy you do online, for all we know, Sean, you could be crying yourself to sleep every night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we
I
don't
often
know.
have, Marty. For other reasons, of course.
Yeah, okay. Not because of what a Bill69_ said on your Instagram.
Exactly. That's actually such a valid point with like the virality and potential of TikTok. You can't just hide behind, oh, I'm a fake account. I didn't know it was going to get traction. You knew what you were doing. And probably the reason you posted that was to invariably get some.
Well, I don't think that they would post it. And see, the thing is, but the harsher the comment, I find the more of a reaction they're looking from other people. You know, and I think that's what it boils down to. At the end of the day, we all live in an age, which is actually really sad to think about, because I was chatting to my other half about this, and I was like talking about how like our parents go on holidays, and I was saying I'm so jealous of them because her parents will go away, my parents go away, and you might not see an ounce of it on social media, and they've had the best time of their life. And right now, there's just such an obligation to show everyone what you're doing at all times nearly. And I would absolutely like hate to be a teenager right now. I just think that it'd be so tough. The amount of pressure on you, given what you see on your phone every day, I just think it's astronomical. I'm just like, I wouldn't have personally been able for it when I was a teenager. No way.
From my travels, what I would love people to understand is usually when you're seeing these mega influencers posting clips of the beach club, whatever, I've been there, not necessarily in the same section of the beach club as they might be, but I've seen them posting their stories, and like literally for that lovely female influencer that you might see posing on her side pose by the pool, there's probably 120 fucking different variations of that photo that was taken. Like, you do not understand the lengths and breadths that people will go into to portray the ideal life, to portray that they're having so much fun. The stories as well, like storying is essentially just looking for you to project in real time how good your life is. And I discussed this on the last podcast as well. It's not necessarily always just the influencers that make people feel bad. It's the fact if anyone's showing up on their story, they're there to show you good things going on in their life. Mm-hmm. They're out and about, they're at a football game, they're out in a nightclub, they're at EP. And if you're absorbing that all of the time, then it can very easily make you feel a bit worse about your situation there as well. So I completely agree with you there on that point. It is quite a difficult time to be a teenager, but ironically, when I've been having like a great time on holidays or whatever, I go ghost mode on my story. Like, I just forget. I don't like but when I'm there in Carpe Diem with a vape in my mouth in a bar, raving with my top off. I'm not thinking, oh, I should story this.
I know, and I've gotten there. I wasn't there before, you know, and I have gotten there now, and I might do like a little collage or something when I'm home of like my 6 favorite photos or something, you know. I'm so over the idea of feeling that people need to know what I'm doing right now. And I just love more people, because like it just because something doesn't go online doesn't mean you didn't have fun. And that's the annoying thing about it. I'm like, you can have the best time ever, and it's almost like if you don't post, people are questioning why you don't post. Like, if I go away with my other half for a week and we don't share anything, like, people could be like, oh, does he even have another half? Like, does she even have another half? Like, or are they hiding each other? It's like, what? It's like the lengths that people will go to try figure out like why you're not doing something. And I go back to my parents and her parents, and they just don't share everything. They could be at the nicest restaurant in the world, but they're just of a generation where they just sit there and enjoy it, you know? And it makes me so jealous. Not that I want to be in my 50s anytime soon, but like, well, actually, it doesn't sound too bad, really. But
slow down, Mark.
Yes,
there'll be plenty of time.
I don't want to wish time away, but
what I found very disheartening over in Croatia was, I remember just and this happens everywhere. It wasn't just these people. I'm just using them as an example. There was like 4 or 5 teenage lads around the table waiting for their meal. Every single one of them dialed into their phones. And look, I've been there to try and post a post that I needed to post or whatever, but then the phone's gone away. Mm-hmm. But they spent the whole meal on. It was as if they may as well not have been in the same room, the same restaurant.
They could
together.
have been having. That's actually a very good point. They could have all gone to their own individual restaurant and just met up afterwards. Yeah.
But I was like, is this the way the world is going? That you have an opportunity to have real time in-person interactions, and instead you're choosing someone who's probably not even there or the validation of people who might follow you or follow your Snapchat story, and you're posting stories saying that this is great, you're out for a meal, having a T-bone steak or whatever, but you've 3 or 4 people around you who you're actually not talking to. I just think that to me, that is very, very disappointing.
But we've gotten into the habit of needing validation from people who we don't know. And that's a hard thing. If you are constantly getting validation from people that you don't know and they're showing you all this love, you post a picture of, like you said, that T-bone steak and everyone's like, oh, that looks unreal. You're going to be like, yeah, it does look unreal, you know, and it makes you feel good. It does. Let's be honest. Like if you post a photo on Instagram and you get more likes than usual, you're on a high, you know, you're like, okay, great. You know, the greatest thing that Instagram has ever done right now is introduce the hide the likes option. Like I'm such a fan of that. And I've actually used that to change what I post, because now I can just kind of post photos that I want to post rather than going, right, well, I've had 2 or 3 duds, so I better go to the beach and get a photo of me holding an ice cream with my top off so I can get the interaction back up. What mentality is that to have, you know? Like, who was that person, I'm thinking, who had to do this 2 DJ photos and 1 photo of me eating the biggest pizza in Ireland, you know, the kind of way? Like, because I'm like, this is what people want to see. And I still can't believe that I was at that point. And I'm just like, if anyone's listening to me right now, like even DJs in music, they're like, oh, you know, like I'm getting like 100 views on TikTok and all. And I'm like, it's 100 views. Like, so what? You're grand. You're posting. Are you happy with what you posted? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, great. You know,
put 100 people in the room in front of you and let's see how deflated you feel.
Imagine, like, exactly. Can you imagine that? You get 1,000 views on a post and you're deflated. And then you go, right, well, go out and do that DJ mix now in front of 1,000 people. 1,000 people. What nightclub in Ireland holds 1,000 people? You know what I mean? Like
the nightclub that I worked in, against all fire safety regulations.
Well, is it a held 500, but they put 1,000 in? Yeah,
1,500. They're closed down now, so it's okay.
I wonder why.
I was the bouncer. I was like, I'm not going inside there. The fire breaks out in here. We're fucked. Was it gonna with validation? Yeah, it's quite ironic for people who are on social media like me and you to sit here and go, "Oh, we don't care about the external validation." Of course you do. Well, that's what your social media is based on. It's predicated upon your ability to increase your engagement, essentially, to reach more people. So validation is important for kind of social media. But something that I've tried to do is to challenge my ability to need a certain level of validation. So I've had, I think it was like last year, I posted a couple of consecutive, the worst posts ever. They just were so unaesthetic or whatever. And they got like 120 likes, which for me would be very, very poor engagement. But I was like, you know what? This is training me not to need the same amount of likes.
I love this. I love hearing you say this because you're someone who has such a big audience, and to tell people that you still did that. Because 99% of people with your audience, if they posted something and got really poor engagement, they'd delete it or archive it. But I love this. This is making me really happy now because this is what I want people to hear. I'm like, if you want to share something and you like it, just share it. Who cares how many people see it or like it? Like, no, I don't go checking people's. Like, no one, I don't think people do. I'm sure some people do within the industry. They go, I wonder how many views that person gets for their following and all that. Yeah. But the average person doesn't give a shit. You know, I can't imagine the average person goes onto my TikTok and goes, well, that video got 30,000 views, but that one got 400,000. That doesn't add up. Like, they don't care. Like, you know,
this is going to be put to the test for me. And I will be honest with you, if I'm storying in public, I feel awkward. But I'm more, as I get older, come to the realization that things like this really don't matter. People probably don't even see you fucking storying. If they do, they glance for 2 seconds. You're forgotten about. People have their own shit to be dealing with. They don't care about the crazy guy walking outside Super Quinn fucking talking to a camera. Like, for all they know, you could be FaceTiming someone.
That's actually true, yeah.
But next week, but my YouTube channel will be kind of reignited. I used to do them 4 years ago. Haven't done them in a long time. I'm bringing the videographer with me to document the whole journey. I'm going to get a hair transplant next week. And
amazing.
This is me putting to the test, do I really care as much as I think? So if I'm able to go through an airport with a videographer talking to a camera, go through the whole procedure, the whole rigmarole, and be able to post that online, I'm very interested to see how I perform. So I'm not saying that I'm going to be good, bad, or indifferent with this. Yeah. So that's my challenge to myself. Do I still rely on the external validation of just people who might be looking at me?
And this is something that you really want to do.
Yeah, like 100%. And as you were saying there, with long form, as we were saying before, long form content I think is very important, especially for social media. Like, I know it's not so much your bread and butter, at least now, but for me it would be, but across TikTok, Instagram, with short form content, and this is where we start to see people paint false representations of people. It's very hard to get to know someone through 30-second TikToks, 30-second reels. Whereas what I want to do now for the next year, my goal is with this podcast, with the YouTube as well, so that people who come through the funnel, let's say, of short form content, Instagram and TikTok, that they get to know me at a more personal level. They get to know my personality, my beliefs and everything else. So that's why I want to go through with, I suppose, this long form content. I'm not sure what point we were on.
That makes sense. Doesn't matter. Who cares? Because I even noticed in spending the last like hour and a half with you or whatever it's been, I actually haven't checked my watch. It's great. You're a great company.
Cheers.
Is that you're not a different person. You're not different. I've just gotten to know you. Do you get me? And you're still the person online who just curses, and like I can see why you would come across as arrogant. And I'm like on your podcast right now telling people that you are not, you know, that kind of way.
But what's interesting with that as well, and this is something I've learned kind of recently, is like, if people think you're arrogant, so what? What's the worst thing that can happen? Someone goes, he's a bit of an arrogant cunt. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, cheers. I'm going to keep doing exactly as I was doing. So being called arrogant, I don't think is the worst thing in the world. But I do think
I think you're passionate.
Some might say so, but if
You
someone
can mix
talks to
up
me
the
about
two.
calories, it bores me to death, to be honest. And this is where I make my living. Like, that's all I talk about.
Well,
with
the
kind of
last
chicken.
place I want to be on my night off is a nightclub. So there you go. Like, yeah.
Interesting. What were we saying there? I was on a really interesting point.
My watch is telling me to get up and walk. Shut up.
Okay. In any case, Marty, I'm very interested to know what's your next steps. What does the next 5 years look like for you?
Oh.
And I don't want the boring answer of, I'd love to keep doing the same thing. I'm doing now."
No. Let's give you something. I'm gonna do my first drug.
What?
Imagine
Coffee, is it?
I gave you that. Yeah. No. I actually have never done a drug in my life. That's the funny thing, because everyone's like, "Oh, you're a DJ," and I'm like, I'm the world's most uncool DJ. I did a weed brownie in Amsterdam once, lost the feeling in my legs, and I just was like, this is just not for me. Like, you know. So anytime someone says, "Oh, like, what are you gonna do now?" Like, you know, over the next 5 years, I'm gonna try a drug. No, I'm not. Just joking. Sean's like, "I'll be cutting this one out. We can't have
Do you
this
drink?
one."
No, fucking walk away.
I'm not. I don't know. I can't say I'm not gonna do a drug, but I actually haven't. That's the funny thing, and I don't know how my body would react to it if I did. But I am digging a hole right now. I know I do drink. Yes, so that is something that I do, and it's something that I do enjoy. I'm not an alcoholic. But
The thumbnail of the video is going to be Marty Guilfoyle is an alcoholic.
is an alcoholic, yeah. And I'm in an industry where it's acceptable to have a drink while you work. You know, not on the radio, by the way, or when I'm driving to my gigs. It's not acceptable then to have a drink.
No, definitely.
But at the gigs, it is acceptable. So I would have one. I mean, if I'm staying in a hotel afterwards, then absolutely, yeah. But I wouldn't do it every night, obviously. But for the next 5 years, if I'm being totally honest, I want to be, like, career aside and all that bullshit of like, oh, I want a global hit and all that. Like, that's obvious. Like, you're asking a DJ what he wants in 5 years. Like, I want to be on a world tour next year. You know what I mean? I want people to listen to all my stuff. I want to be happier. I want to be happier in 5 years. Like, I'm looking back 5 years ago and I'm already happier now. And I'm like, okay, if I've been able to become happier 5 years, like now since 5 years ago, I could definitely do it even better in 5 years. And the idea would be is to like find out exactly what makes me happy, and anything negative or anything that pulls away from that happiness, I just need to get rid of, you know? And I know that sounds very vague, but to me, that's why we're all here. That's what you want to do. You just want to be happy. Obviously, you're not going to be happy all the time. I mean, you wouldn't be human if you were. But I look at me 5 years ago, and definitely 5 years before that, and I'm thinking, I'm actually getting comfortable getting older. A lot of people fear it. I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm actually really enjoying this. That's why I made that joke earlier about being in my 50s. I'm like, that sounds like a lot of fun. Like, you know, especially if you work your ass off and can somehow retire. Like, my dad retired in his 50s. You know, he was a fireman. He worked in the service for over 30 years. And I'm just thinking, that sounds great, doesn't it?
Bar the reverse V haircut.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the growth on the sides. I was actually talking earlier about the donor sites. That's why your hair actually stays as you get older here, because apparently your donor sites are all there, but there's none on top. That's what Dan in Primal Studios is informing me.
My parents, that's no way, really? Oh, my parents, to be fair, both have great heads of hair, so I'm hoping to keep those genetics for sure. But
I'm very jealous.
I'm hoping now in 5 years you could ask me that question and go, "Are you happier?" And I'm going to say yes. I mean, like we can go morbid and go, "If I'm still here." But then again, if I'm not here in 5 years, I might be happier. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. We won't be able to ask you that question. But.
You won't, but I'll somehow find a way to let you know, Sean. Don't you worry. Yeah.
On that note, I think that's a very good point to end the podcast on. Is there anything that you'd like to promote or anywhere where people can find you?
At Marty Guilfoyle on my social media, be great. Drop by, leave a comment on your favorite remix, and then leave a comment on one that you think is shit. That'd be awesome. And then I have a new song coming out on I don't know when this podcast is going out, by the way.
Probably next week.
Great. September 30th.
Perfect timing.
I have a new song coming out called Darkness. So if you could take a listen to that would be great. Thank you.
Now, I'm not too familiar with how to end or do an outro on a podcast, but
the best thing to do is always end on a laugh.
That's going to be difficult.
Just laugh.
Okay.
You did it.
Yes. That's a good, that's all for today's podcast. Marty, it's been brilliant to have you here. Really, really enjoyed our conversation. I think a lot of people will take an awful lot of value from that. With respect to this podcast itself, obviously find Marty at all his links, Instagram, TikTok, Marty Guilfoyle. Your profile, Spotify is actually Marty with 2 Y's now, isn't it?
Yes, please don't slag me for it. It wasn't my idea. Well, it was, but everyone else agreed to it.
Well, they won't be slagging you when you're touring with Tiesto in about 2 years' time. So that's all for this podcast. Subscribe, all the basic stuff. It's not on Apple or Spotify yet, 'cause I'm a consummate professional, as you can tell. But I shall see you again in the next one.